A new Star Wars movie is here? You all know what that requires. Quick change. Ah, yeah. Rogue One, a Star Wars story is here! Ah, I'm so happy. So Rogue One is the newest Star Wars movie that is more or less a prequel to A New Hope. Now, I think I speak for everyone when I say that this was a movie that I was just absurdly excited for all year. I mean, I love Star Wars, and I love that this movie was gonna tell the story of how the rebels got the plans for the Death Star, and also how it was being marketed that this was going to be a straight-up war movie in Star Wars. Some people, however, were probably surprised I didn't have Rogue One higher on my anticipation list, but that's only because there was some slight skepticism from me going into it. And maybe it was just me being paranoid, but it was simply because it is a Star Wars prequel, and you know, we all know how those have turned out. Again, if you love the prequel trilogy, that is totally fine. I'm just someone who doesn't. That being said, if you ask me, when it comes to Star Wars prequels, this is how they should be done. I am so pumped to give you guys my spoiler talk for Rogue One. I'm probably one of the last people to be uploading a spoiler talk for Rogue One, but I imagine by now, anyone who cares to see Rogue One has seen Rogue One. So let's talk about Rogue One. So right out the gate, I loved the way this movie opened up. We see this man, Galen Erso, on this planet Lamu with his family, and then this guy, Orson Krennic, shows up on this planet. He's someone who works for the Empire as a weapons designer, and Krennic has come to tell Erso that he needs to come back with him to the Empire to finish work on the Death Star. And of course, Galen Erso doesn't really want to go along with it anymore because he knows what the Death Star is capable of. So eventually Krennic takes him captive, murders his wife, and then orders his men to go searching for his daughter, Jyn Erso. Luckily for Jyn, though, she is found and rescued by Saw Gerrera, a veteran from the Clone Wars, so she is not to be found by the Empire. But the reason I love this opening so much is because right out the gate, the movie establishes the kind of tone it's going to have. You can tell the movie's going for a much darker tone than a lot of Star Wars movies have had in the past, and I thought that was awesome. Then the movie flashes forward 15 years later. Jyn Erso is now an adult. She's played by Felicity Jones, who did a great job in this movie. The rebels free her from an Imperial prison, and now they want her to contribute to the rebellion by finding Saw Gerrera because they believe that he now knows or has something that could contribute towards fighting against the Empire. And you can tell for the moment Jyn Erso isn't really willing to go along with it, but as soon as she gets word that her father is involved with this plan of bringing down the Empire, now she's willing to go along with it. So here she joins up with Cassian Andor. He's a rebel intelligence officer, and the droid that he's taken from the Imperial forces and modified named K2SO. Now I gotta touch on K2SO right now. This character was awesome. He was funny as hell in this movie. He is exactly how comic relief should be done. He reminded me a little bit like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. You're a really smart, very analytical sort of character, always says really smart and sometimes obvious things to the characters, which can annoy the characters, and he doesn't find it funny because it's just how he sees things, but to an audience, it's hilarious. So the three of them travel to the planet Jedha to meet with Saw Gerrera, and we find out that Saw Gerrera, he hasn't really been in touch with Jyn Erso for a long time, even though he was the one who saved her and then raised her when she was a child. We see that he's taken this guy named Rook captive. He was an Imperial pilot working for the Empire, and he's been using this squid to try to read his mind to figure out what he knows. He meets with Jyn, and he shows her a hologram of her father with a message that was meant for her, and the hologram is him telling Jyn of, you know, how he's sorry he couldn't be there for her because of his abduction, that he loves her and that he misses her. And you can really see her eyes welling up in tears, which makes perfect sense because you feel any child who saw their parent on a hologram say that to them, they probably would. But then comes the big moment when he reveals to Jyn that he compromised the Death Star when he was helping to build it. And he reveals that he designed a hole to lead to the Death Star's reactor shaft, and if, you know, missiles or lasers or something, you know, shot into it, it will shut down the Death Star. I'm gonna tell you right now, in this moment, there were things that I loved and didn't really love about this scene. First of all, getting into what I didn't really love about it is, this right here is really the last we see of Saw Gerrera, which does have me wonder right there if he was really a necessary character. I mean, you can't help but feel that the movie just wanted to throw him in there to have a survivor of the Clone Wars. But all we really see him do is save Jyn when she's a child, have a squid read Rook's mind, and then give Jyn the hologram. That's about it. I mean, the trailers made it look like he was going to play a really pivotal role, and I kind of wish he did a little bit more. But getting into what I love about this moment is this scene right here essentially made A New Hope a better movie. And what I mean by that is when people saw A New Hope for the first time, they would always think to themselves, why did the Death Star necessarily have a reactor shaft that, you know, you shoot missiles into it and the whole station blows up? That seems like a cop-out a little bit. Now Rogue One has given us a reason to why that's there, that was purposely put there by a rebel in the Empire so the rebellion had a chance to destroy the Death Star and bring down the Empire. So now whenever you watch A New Hope and they're talking about the reactor shaft and that's how you destroy the Death Star, there's more of a story behind that. It does make you wonder now with Star Wars The Force Awakens why Starkiller Base had a similar weakness. And just for the record, this is not me knocking The Force Awakens. I still love The Force Awakens very, very much. I'm just saying, I had to point it out. At this point, however, the group gets attacked by these stormtroopers, and here is where we get introduced to two new characters. You have a blind warrior played by Donnie Yen. He's not a Jedi, but he strongly believes in the Force. You know, he frequently prays to himself, I'm one with the Force is with me. Which was really cool to see with his character in the fact that he's someone who showed a different side of the Force, as in, it's not just a weapon that Jedi and Sith can use to fight against their enemies. No, it's like a religious, spiritual factor that a lot of people just believe in. We're also introduced to his friend, played by Jian Wen. I'm probably butchering that, but he's a mercenary working with the rebellion. He's armed with this kick-ass machine gun that he just mows down stormtroopers with. It's pretty awesome. However, getting back to Krennic, because he is essentially the antagonist of this movie, I should touch on him a little bit. He, in this moment, has met with Grand Moff Tarkin about the Death Star. And what was really cool with this movie is not just the fact that they brought back Grand Moff Tarkin, but they used CGI so well that it really made it look like they had the actor who played Grand Moff Tarkin in A New Hope back for this movie. I thought it was a very impressive way with how they used CGI and how their visual effects were done in this movie. I mean, the movie has great visual effects anyway because it's a Star Wars movie, but the fact that they did that, it made it feel a little more special. But anyways, Grand Moff Tarkin is talking to Krennic about how he feels the Death Star needs to be tested, so Krennic has it target a city on Jedha, which conveniently happens to be where the rebels are right now. And what's good about this moment is seeing once again what the Death Star is capable of doing. I mean, for nostalgia reasons, it's great seeing the Empire just powering up the Death Star, it getting ready to fire, it then destroying the city, but it also helps remind us just how powerful this weapon is. At not even full strength, this thing just completely wipes out an entire city. Thankfully though, the rebels, with the exception of Saw Gerrera, all escape alive. So now it's in this moment, now that the Empire knows what the Death Star is capable of, Krennic decides to go pay a little visit with someone pretty high in the Empire. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, that guy. What's really cool though is when he first goes to meet with Darth Vader, you see Darth Vader in this like cryogenic tube, something like that. It's like filled with water. He looks like he has a feeding tube hooked up to him, and someone says, Vader, he's ready to meet with you. And you can tell in that moment, Krennic's freaked out because he saw Darth Vader for who he really is behind the mask. It's like that moment in Empire Strikes Back when he's having his helmet put on and the soldier sees him like that. It shows Darth Vader's vulnerability, which I think is pretty cool. Then Darth Vader, you know, in his full suit, comes out to meet with Krennic, and Krennic tries to tell him, you know, completely terrified of him, of course, but saying that we feel like the Death Star is now ready to make its strike against the rebellion. However, Darth Vader isn't quite ready to believe him. He tells him that, and as he's walking away, Krennic tries to explain himself further, but then you start hearing him choking. And what's great is you see Darth Vader turn around to him, you see he's doing this finger neck pinch, and he's like, be careful not to choke on your aspirations. I just love seeing that stuff again with Darth Vader. It's awesome. So now at this point, Jyn Erso and the rest of her team, they've arrived at the rebel leadership to tell them about the plans against the Death Star. And Jyn Erso at this point, she really wants to take down the Empire and get these plans because, you know, she just had to watch her father get killed and have him die in her arms. That was a tough scene to watch, I'll tell you that right now. Unfortunately for Jyn Erso, the rebel leadership doesn't want to go through with this plan because they don't have proof of it, because they don't have the hologram of Galen Erso telling Jyn Erso about the weakness. And Jyn Erso tries to give him this big speech about how, you know, we have hope though, rebellions are built on hope. It doesn't work for her advantage though, so now it's down to her and the rest of her team to board this ship, which they call Rogue One, and they go out to get these plans themselves. Now this is when the movie only just kicks in even further because you just know the pressure that is riding on it. It's just funny though, because as you're watching this movie, you remember to yourself, you know, you saw A New Hope, so you know exactly how this is gonna go, but it still has you feeling that way because the movie just has you in the moment. So Jin, Cassian, and K2SO, they go in disguised as Imperial officers to search for the plans while everyone else just holds the Empire off. And the gang does that by just taking on this giant stormtrooper fleet to keep the attention on them. And the action, it's really fun and exciting, but it's also just so dramatic and so intense because it's war. Like I said, this is a straight up war movie in the Star Wars universe, and these scenes really show that. It gets to a point when Jin and Cassian are able to find the plans, but the stormtroopers are coming after them. They're hunting them down. However, in order for the two of them to obtain the plans to the Death Star, K2SO has to hold off the stormtroopers, which costs his life doing so. Soon enough, the other members of the team who are just fighting off stormtroopers here and there, they're all getting taken out. It's just tough to watch, seeing all these characters that you grow to love throughout this movie, just seeing them get killed off the way that they do. All just so two people can have a chance at getting these plans to destroy the Empire's super weapon. Eventually, Krennic himself decides to confront Jin and Cassian, telling them how they don't have any hope in this, but Cassian ends up shooting Krennic. This from here allows Jin to transport the Death Star plans that they just downloaded to a rebel ship. And in this moment, Grand Moff Tarkin decides to order the Death Star to fire onto the planet that Jin, Cassian, and even Krennic are all still on. And this right here just really hits me in seeing just Jin and Cassian. They know they can't get away from the shockwave. They know they're going to die. They just hug it out, they embrace, and Cassian tells Jin in basically his final words that her father would be so proud of her. I mean, it's intense, it just stabs a spike into your heart. It also surprised me too, because I thought at least one or maybe two people would escape this alive, but you see here that nobody did. They all gave their lives for the rebellion, like true soldiers. Darth Vader, however, knows what the rebels have now acquired, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. We go back to the rebel command ship. We see the rebels, they're preparing to make their escape, and they get locked into this room where they are, and then they turn around, they just see darkness. And in this moment, you just hear Darth Vader breathing, and then all of a sudden, you see his lightsaber activated, and you see the fear that goes into every single rebel's eyes. They all just tried to unload at Darth Vader, but Darth Vader's just deflecting all their bolts back at them. He's using the Force to slam some guys around the room. He's cutting down guys as he can. The rebels just know in this moment that they're all going to die. So one of the rebels, the one who has the plans in his hands, he goes over to a small crack in the door. He hands it to the other rebels. He's like, take it, save the rebellion. And the guy's just able to get it from him just as Darth Vader impales the guy who handed him the plans. It's just a moment I really loved with Darth Vader, because right here you just see the evil in Darth Vader. He came onto the ship. He knew he was showing no mercy. He knew he had to get these plans back for the Empire because he knows how pivotal they are. And he is straight up murdering every single one of these rebels, just cutting them down, impaling them, deflecting their lasers back at them. I wasn't sure how much of Darth Vader we'd get in Rogue One, but I wanted the scenes with him to be memorable and show us why he was one of the most evil villains in movie history. We got that in this movie, and we really got that in this moment. It was awesome. In this moment, the rebels have finally escaped Darth Vader. The rebel who got the plans, he then gives them to Princess Leia, who again, thanks to CGI, looks like the young Princess Leia we saw in A New Hope. It's insane how that worked. And he just asks her, what is this? And she just says, hope. So now we see right here that Rogue One directly leads right into A New Hope. I think that's really cool how they did that. I like sometimes seeing how one movie can lead directly into another one. So all in all, I thought Rogue One, A Star Wars Story was awesome. The characters in this movie were all great. I really loved Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso. She did a great job as the leading lady in this movie. Everyone else who was a part of the Rogue One team did a really good job. Like I said, I loved K2SO in this movie. I thought he was funny as hell. Krennic was a great antagonist for this movie. I love that Rogue One was able to bring in a new character and still make him a great villain. Darth Vader wasn't in the movie much, but when he was in this movie, it was just fantastic. The action is awesome, it's intense, it really hits you where you live when you see these characters die because you grow so attached to them in this movie. Visually, the movie looked great. I mean, the space battles, the war on these planets, the way the movie used CGI to make characters look like they were back again. I love that this movie was all about hope, and sometimes when you have hope, that's all you really need to get yourself to do something that may be crazy and insane, but sometimes that can just be the drive you need. This movie, however, isn't without its flaws. I mean, like I said, Saw Gerrera, I didn't think he was the most useful character, if you will. And also, in the beginning of this movie, it is a little choppy with story time because it's trying to touch base with every single character in it that's relevant anyway. Now, of course, everyone's gonna talk among themselves, you know, where does it rank among Star Wars movies? I personally can't put it above the original trilogy or even The Force Awakens for that matter, but I still think it is a fantastic movie. That's not me saying it's bad. I don't want anyone to think that because I'm not saying that. Because honestly, in the end, I went into this movie hoping that Disney would give us a really awesome Star Wars prequel, and they did that. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.